All right, this is Anwar Salandi of Anwar's Reflections. Today we're sitting down with Council Large candidate Christine Donahue. Welcome to the show, Ms. Donahue.
Thank you, Anwar.
All right, can you tell our audience a little bit more about who you are and why you're running for office?
Well, I'm Christine Donahue. I live here in the city. I'm over in the South Ward, and this is the second time I've run for council. I ran 4 years ago, and I wasn't able to get a council seat, but I came very close. And so since then, I've been very active in the city, and I'd like to continue. I'd like to serve the community as a council person.
Okay. And I want to touch on something in the past. In the past interview, you've said that the role of being an at-large council person is to promote fair and balanced policies to support economic development here in the city. What specific ideas or proposals, if any, do you have to spur economic development here in the city?
Well, Anwar, I think you realize that council people usually are the impetus for most of the ordinances that we see come up into council, and the reason being is there's concerns on behalf of the business owners, the business community, or the residents, and as a result an ordinance is passed. I think it's very important that when an ordinance is passed that it's reviewed for the effects that it has on the entire city, on each ward, not just the individual, because of course there is always some cost benefit when an ordinance is passed. And I think that's very important that it be a positive effect for the entire city.
Okay. And also, along with this, you've mentioned some different services or departments within City Hall, like the Division of Economic Development and the Bureau of Streets, and how they need reform and need to be held accountable. Your idea was to have them provide quarterly reports of their actions. Do you still think that's a good idea, and do you think more and more of the all the city services need to do that, or all the departments need to do that, or?
I think all the departments need to do that, and I'm a big proponent of a form of budgeting called zero-based budgeting, and in that you take a look at the cost for service delivery, and I think you can do that on a per head basis in the city. We're about 85,000 people, so it is possible to know how much does it cost us to pick up trash per household, and would it be more effective to have more or less pickups in certain areas. I don't see that type of strategic analysis going on in the city right now. I don't really think that the council delves into things at that level, but I think it's really important, especially in this new administration, to take on those type of challenges.
And you would want to have a strategic focus this time. If you were elected, you would want to strategically pinpoint these things.
Yes, and I have to say over the past 4 years, the one thing that I haven't seen is I haven't seen the council hold any of the departments, including the Board of Education, responsible for anything that has gone on. It's rare that you see the directors called into council. It's rare that you see reporting from the directors unless there's a big problem, but there isn't regular reporting. And the council, of course, well, any citizen can go and sit in on a ComStat meeting, on the Board of Education meetings, but I don't think that the council has been proactive in addressing issues that the citizens are facing, and I think it's very important that whoever takes on the role of council person is interested and is watching benchmarks.
Okay, and along with this, there's also been some budget issues that have come up. How do you propose to help balance the budget as a council person, recognizing that doing so will involve making some pretty difficult decisions that may even involve, cutting services or maybe even raising taxes to increase revenue?
Well, I think first of all we have to focus on improving the services that we do deliver, and those are the most basic, of course, garbage removal from the city, snow plowing, repairing of the streets. And so I think we have to have a primary focus, what's important to Trentonians, and I think it's clear that that is the most important. And then I think we should look at secondary services and see which one of them are being utilized and by how many people, and make some choices based on how people feel about the services that they're receiving.
Okay. And regarding the issue of crime and public safety, candidate Duncan Harrison, one of your opponents, has advocated creating an auxiliary police force. What plan do you have to stem the tide of violence here in the city of Trenton?
So it's interesting because we had an auxiliary police force, and we did have a group of people that were trained, and that was the decision of the police department to not utilize that force. Part of the reason was liability at the time, but again, it's a directive. So auxiliary police forces, community policing, is a style of policing. And in that directive comes from the director. Of course, now we have the civilian director. I think that we need to go to a stop and challenge form of policing. It's a more proactive form of policing. And I think that we need to focus on areas where there's drug activity, because the drug activity tends to bring additional types of crime. I'd like to see us go from a civilian police director to a police chief as well. If we save the $300,000 salary that we currently give the civilian police director, we could afford to hire a few more police officers. My hope is that we'll be able to hire an additional 40 police officers to put the TAC unit back together, and to save money in ways, creative ways, such as when alarms go off repeatedly in the city, we would charge landlords or business owners for the call to the police to check out the business. That's a common practice in most municipalities in New Jersey now.
Now, when you mentioned the bringing on additional police officers in light of the budget problems, how would you propose doing that? Like, what would be your plan to get the funds or the resources to hire some more police officers?
There are federal funds available to hire additional police officers, and as we know, with the fire department, we had the SAFER grant.
Okay.
And there were opportunities under the Mac administration to receive additional funds. Unfortunately, the grants weren't written on time, and the due dates passed. And that's one of the reasons why we lost some of the police officers earlier. I believe that was in 2012. So I'd like to see those police officers reinstated through grant funding. And I think it would be a good investment on part of the city to add an additional grant officer. Of course, there's the opportunity always to promote the city and engage the state and at the federal level in dialogue. That's always very important. And I think you have to focus on the bigger issues, on things such as the environment, on improving the environment, the quality of the environment in the city, and on the arts is very important. And, of course, public safety is very important. And there are a lot of tools available. For example, in terms of public safety, I think it's very important to focus on our youth and engage our youth in activities that help prevent them from going in a negative direction. I really applaud the NJTL for all the work that they've done and for bringing the tennis league, the junior tennis league, to the city. It's very important. Also, the Trenton Community Music School, I think it's very important. And I'd like to see these organizations flourish in the city because they serve the youth of the city, and they'll really help to give students, our youths, our teens, a foundation, and that will help them to grow and to find opportunities inside the city and outside the city.
So this may also involve forging relationships or partnerships on a state level too, not just maybe confining yourself to the city of Trenton, but maybe reaching out to people, on the state level or other county level to maybe help the city of Trenton.
Well, I think there are a lot of resources available at the state level, and I think that other municipalities have been much more effective at using them, such as NJ Clean Communities. I think that's a great resource. CityWorks is a great resource, and I don't think the city has been very good or very easy to work with in terms of implementing projects in the city. And I think if council people were more willing to educate themselves and invest their time in different projects in the city, I think that you would see a much more robust economy in the city. So I do think that the council people have that ability.
And lastly, regarding transparency and having a sense of strong, sound government, and in light of the whole corruption surrounding Tony Mack, how would you as a council person try to promote transparency and sound government as a council person?
I think think it's important that all the council people are open to dialogue and that there's a discussion. I think there should be a lot of contact between the council people for the purpose of educating council people on all the different aspects of the workings of the city, working of City Hall, and the needs of the residents. And I think within that dialogue, I think there's room to disagree. But what I didn't see with this council is I didn't see cohesion in terms of the dialogue. I didn't ever feel that they were open to discussion. They were open to feedback. They were open to new ideas. I felt that they were very positional. They each took a position, and that was the end of the discussion. And I think residents suffered for that. And so I'd like to see council people, whoever they are, who are more open to process and are more open to working together, because we are public servants and the end goal is to serve the residents of the city. And I'd always like to keep that in front of us as our objective. Are we serving the residents? Are they better off because of these decisions that we're making? Or have we in some way taken away from their quality of life?
And that's the thing too with council in terms of maybe the minutes or of the meetings, the council meetings. Maybe I don't know if they're actually currently available online, or available in different ways. Because sometimes I find myself as a citizen, I don't even know what's going on with what the council is talking about as far as. So, do you think there's ways in which to communicate with the public more so they can get more engaged in the process, because the council represents the people. So, but if the council is not in communication with the people, because the people are not aware of what the council is talking about in terms of new ordinances or what have you.
The only thing that I've noticed, I mean, it's interesting because all the information that you need really is available, and I can think of 10 ways right now to make information more readily available. But it is the responsibility of the citizens to reach out and to seek that information, whether it's online, whether it's actually going to the meetings, whether it's actually picking up the phone and calling council people. That's one of the things that you have to do as an active citizen. My difficulty is that my experience has been once the council people are contacted or have been contacted, they are unresponsive. And there you have no dialogue. So it isn't even the point of, well, the information's not available. It's that there's no dialogue once you've made contact. And I think that's really stopped the city. That's been happening with ordinances that get tabled. For example, the landlord ordinance, which would seek to make landlords responsible if there were felony charges against their tenants. That just sat in the legal desk, and no council person ever followed up on that again. And I know as a citizen we try to gather together and to talk about that and to get some traction. Marge Caldwell-Wilson, who was responsible for the ordinance, never came to the meeting. Kathy McBride did come, and we did have a really good conversation with her, but nothing ever happened afterwards. So the information is available. It's just that the council people seem to not understand that their role is to work with the citizens. And so I think I'd like to really see that in a new council. Now, just in terms of making information more available, in the rest of Mercer County, the council meetings are videotaped and they're available online. So every morning when you wake up, you would just go to trentonnj.org and there's a full video recording of the council meeting from the previous night. That's just natural. If you speak at the meeting, you get an email and you get your video clip from the meeting. So that's the job of the clerk. They do that now. I would love to see that. I don't want to spend any more tax dollars if I don't need to. So, I would hope that we could figure out a very cost-effective way to do that. But I personally don't think that's a priority right now.
Okay.
I think a priority is really public safety. And I'd like to see our tax dollars go to public safety, to taking care of the streets, to fixing the potholes, to figure out a better plan for removing the garbage, and keeping us safe. I think that's the most important. I think that's what Trentonians really want right now. And down the line, I think once we have that sorted out, it would be great to have more technology in terms of communicating information. Now, I'd like to see a city hall that's open 24/7. I think we should have hours in the evening, at least one evening a week. We should have, the city hall should be open till 7 o'clock. I'd also like to see our website in English and Spanish. I'd also like to see at least English and Spanish spoken behind each of the desks when you go into City Hall. A resident also mentioned it should be Polish. There should be English, Spanish, and Polish. Those are the three main languages in the city. Of course, there's Burmese now, because we have a Burmese population, and we have other people from other nationalities, but I think those main languages, I think if we sought to enfranchise those populations, you'd see a huge change in the city.
And then lastly, just touching back on the whole public safety, because you said that's one of the priorities. I mean, in a previous conversation, I know we talked about how you were saying that drugs is a word that isn't used in dialogue about crime and public safety. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I think one thing that's happened in the city is that the drug trade has flourished, partially because of our location, partially because we lack the police force to stop it, and so we've just become a very welcoming location for the drug trade. And most people can indicate a problem house in their block where there's illegal activity going on. It's usually some form, it's either crack cocaine, heroin, crystal meth, one of those, and it's really run rampant in the city. And I think that unless there's a proactive force trying to reduce the amount of drugs that go through the city, we just won't be able to. Now, I do also want to say that we're distributing drugs, we're conducting the drug trade in the city, but it's clear that people from outside of the city are coming in and taking advantage of it. I mean, you can see people here from Newark, from North Jersey, from New York. You see license plates from Philadelphia. So I'm not even saying that it's our city. I'm just saying it's the fact that it's going through our city right now. So unfortunately what's happened is we've been put on the front lines of the drug trade. As unfortunate as it is, and as citizens we have to stand up and do what we can to stop it, because it's taking away from our quality of life.
Okay. All right, well, Ms. Donahue, I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.